All right, let's go ahead and get started this evening. We're going to go ahead and call the Center Planning Commission August 18th, 2020 to order with a roll call.
Jeff Seifarth,
I'm here.
Joey Engel,
Here.
Devin Murphy,
Here.
Craig Langford,
Here.
Amber Beal,
Here.
Tiffany Morris,
Here.
Jerry Harris,
Here.
John Sessoms.
I'm here.
Are we welcoming Ben yet?
Yes.
Ben Lewis.
Here.
All are present.
All right, I appreciate it. Just as a quick reminder, everybody did good there, but be sure to be ready with the mute button. And then as you introduce, whether it be a motion or a second, please just state your name so that it'll make it a little easier for Todd as he tries to keep track of our notes. There is on the screen, if you're joining us virtually, there is an opportunity to raise a hand if necessary, or a Q&A. And then if you're calling in by phone, you can do asterisk or *9 to raise your hand. So two different ways to join and be recognized. I would go ahead and like to introduce our newest member. If you remember last time we had voted, I guess, shared our blessing to add one member, and so Ben Lewis, like to welcome you to the Planning Commission, and so now I think we have an odd number, so we shouldn't come to any ties. So Ben, just welcome to the group, okay?
Thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and get started with the agenda here. First on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from 8/4 of 2020.
There's no comments. I'll make a motion to approve the planning minutes from 8/4.
That's John. I second.
All right.
Sorry,
we
Jeff.
got,
I didn't follow your rule. That was
motion.
Joey. That was Joey with the motion.
Got a motion, couple seconds.
I've got it.
We do have a motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, we'll consider the planning minutes approved. Thank you, Todd. Under old business, we do have vacation 20-03, the Roar property. This is lot 117, Tuscany, phase 2, 8-foot of 15-foot utility easement along the west rear. The recommendation to the council, and it was tabled from our last meeting, as the applicant was not here as we went through started the discussion. So I do believe that either Valerie and or Larry may be on this evening with us to just kind of give us a quick overview and just let us know what you're asking for.
Valerie, you should be able to talk now.
Okay, go ahead. Valerie or Larry, are you there?
Ron Shoemate is also here.
Okay. Well, if Valerie or Larry can't speak, Ron.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, but you'll probably need to turn your volume down on your
Okay,
computer.
so am I okay? I have two phones on right now because I wasn't sent a link, so I just called to get a link to be here.
Okay.
So Ron was supposed to be there of Seaside Pools.
Yes,
Is he
he's here.
present?
I'm here.
And is Eric there, the surveyor?
I'm here.
Okay, so they're going to have to explain what I'm asking for, because I'm really not, I thought my yard was big enough to have a pool, but apparently there's so many feet. And so I've asked to use that. And I don't know how much we're using because I didn't draw the, pool up or anything. So can you ask them questions? Because I don't know what I'm
I'd like to
asking
chime in
put my
here. I can chime
backyard.
in real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Pardon? What?
Yeah, this is Eric. What we're asking for is a reduction from the 15-foot.
Uh-oh, did we lose you?
You muted it.
Oh, no.
Well,
I
I can
don't-
take over.
I don't
This
know.
is Ron, if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
Basically, we've turned in drawings. The surveyors drawn it up. We're trying to get a 8-foot release so we can position her pool in her backyard so that it's not right up against her house, which gets hard to build. And there is no utilities or anything back there. There is a retaining wall on the sides and the back. And then we're going to do a wall on the top of our structure. So there'll be no deck behind the drawing you see there. Everything will be towards the house. I'd sent an updated drawing. There it is. Gives you a conceptual of what we're looking at because the yard slopes up away from the house. So we'll be cutting in just a little.
Okay, thank you. Who from the staff has this? Do you want to go ahead and give us an overview this time as well, please? I see it's Nicole. Is that right? Nope, sorry.
No, this one is mine. All right, so this one was tabled at the last city council meeting pending a recommendation from Planning Commission. As they stated, the owner is requesting an 8-foot vacation of the platted 15-foot rear yard utility easement. This is part of the Tuscany subdivision. It backs up to North Main Street. North Main Street is currently an arterial with a right-of-way requirement of 80 feet. While this is currently being met, the proposed master street plan increases this to a minor arterial with a right-of-way requirement of 90 feet. So if this is expanded, it would potentially require utilities to be relocated. Where the pool is shown now, it's about right about 35 feet from the back of curb. And I've included the utility placement specifications here. And the total structure setback is right about 35 feet. So right now it's about meeting that, but if the road is potentially expanded, then we could run into a bit of trouble there. So in your packet, I included the state statute. The process for vacating a utility easement is set by state statute. And we gave you the link for that. We have done some research on other methods, but at this point, vacation is really the best method. The easement is not currently being used. We have, since the last planning commission, gotten a approval form from CenturyLink, which is the one we were missing at the last point. The line that was shown there on the last one, which has been removed on this, was gotten from the plat. But planning does not support this vacation because the state statute is laborious for a reason. Vacation should be considered carefully, and allowing vacations for this in this manner, it sets a precedent and it creates inconsistencies and potential bottlenecks within the city. We did get a adjacent property notification from Debbie and Pete Vanderberg for lot 116. They did state that they do not have an issue with this. The lot to the south is a model home for Riverwoods. We've not gotten anything from them yet at this time, but they did get delivered, and I sent an email to them as well. So, but they are not, we're not required to have gotten notifications from them. We're not required to get approval from them. We just are required to notify them. So if we go to the next page. This was some additional details about the pool to clarify what exactly the structure is and how it will interact with the easement. So as they said, the decking will end right at the edge. So to clarify, as Planning Commission had some questions at the last meeting for what exactly the edge of the decking versus the pool was going to be. There is a short video, but the pictures do a pretty good job of showing what the conditions of the pool are. So, are there any questions? I can answer those.
This is Ron. I've got a question.
All right.
You said this is a precedent. You realize we've done this in every city around here. And if there was no conflict aside from your 34.34, they never really been held up. We could modify it to accommodate the 34.34, which looks like about a foot or so, if that would be acceptable.
So Ron, we understand and appreciate the note on the other cities. We, as a city, actually had the one that we approved last week was actually denied by the, or actually last meeting, sorry, was actually denied by the city council. So just keep that in mind.
Sure.
As Donna shared a few of our concerns, especially this one with Main Street, and the possibility of the expansion there. So that's part of the reason that we don't necessarily like these, partly because it also creates some indentions if we were to try to do some easements along there from a utility perspective. So do appreciate that.
And this is Valerie.
Yes,
Hello.
ma'am. Yes.
Okay. A house 3 on 1341 had a pool put in, and they have a little bit bigger backyard than I do by maybe 2 feet. And they put their pool exactly the way I want to put mine. And I guess they didn't have permission from you guys. But so are you saying that they're going to come take the fence down and we're going to lose our backyard? I'm not real familiar with this. I mean, is the question that they're going to make the street bigger, so they're going to come into my yard? I'm a little confused.
Yeah, and that's really all to be determined. So what we have to look at is, as Donna pointed out, is on our master street plan, which is a kind of a living document for us from a planning commission. So this street, which is actually a state highway, so this street on our master street plan is designed to be a larger street. So with that being in the future, then there is a chance they would need some right of way, and where that comes
So
from,
would
we
they-
don't necessarily
So
determine,
would they
but
take this fence down? Would they take the brick fence?
we don't know any of that right now, Valerie. What we have to do is just
Oh.
plan for the right of way.
Okay.
I think the point that was being made, and this is Nicole with planning staff, is that if there is additional right of way needed and then the road is expanded and improved, then we may need this utility corridor to accommodate utilities if they are needed to be moved out of the road, if that makes sense. So it's more the utility corridor and the potential need for it in the future. Does that
Yes.
sense? Okay.
So I guess what I'm asking is why were they able to put their pool in? Wouldn't it come the same distance?
Well, you may have told on them, and
No,
that's,
no, I get, no, I don't, I went down there and they said they didn't have to get the city approval. So
Mm.
they were a little bit bigger, about 2 feet bigger backyard. So maybe that was why.
Yeah. Valerie, this is John. I know which property that you're speaking of. That easement in their
Okay.
backyard, it's on a different side of the street. It's a little bit different number width. You're on the side of the street that faces Main Street, which has that standoff and right away a little bit further.
No,
Their backyard was actually designed, and when they put the fence in, the fence doesn't actually follow the property line. The fence is kind of an artificial property line. So even though it looks like it's the same distance, it may be a little bit further away from that easement.
oh. Okay. Because when he surveyed, I know the fence is a little bit further back than the actual property line. So I don't know.
Valerie, I'm gonna.
Well, I had a question, Jeff, for Donna, actually, and maybe you can help me. I'm trying to do some public math here. If they were to adjust their design and put it inside the 15-foot easement, if the master street plan was approved to expand to 90, wouldn't it still be within that 90, even if they followed the current easement of 15 feet? You see what I mean? Like if they were to build the pool inside the 15-foot, well, outside the 15-foot easement, if we expanded that right away to 90 foot, it would still be within that 90 feet, right?
On the right of ways for both sides of the road, typically it'd be 45 from center line on either side. I don't know if that changes what you're
Okay.
looking at or not.
Okay. Yeah, it does. That's 34 and 45. I was trying to do the math in my head, making sure that even if you followed the current rules, would you still be in trouble if we expanded the street? That's what I'm getting to, right?
Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't that be a existing non-conforming structure if something was already existing and then something changed?
That's possible, but just to clarify, the 34 feet that's being shown on this exhibit, that's from the edge of existing pavement. So that's not showing right of way. Right of way, like Joey said, is typically from either center line or section line or property line, I guess. And so that would be somewhere in here. And John, and you did some math on this. And I guess Tuscany originally dedicated 40 feet on Main, is that right? Or 35?
That might be a question for Rick. I'm not 100% sure what exactly Tuscany is dedicated.
Please restate the question, please.
Oh, wait, yes, Tuscany has dedicated 40 feet.
Yes.
We found it, Rick.
So it would be an additional 5 foot of right of way and then
Yeah.
20 foot off of that, right? 20 foot inside of that would be the utility easement. Or off of that.
Is it a 15-foot easement or 20-foot easement?
Yeah, our typical's 20 and this one's 15 in the rear. But John, to answer your question, if they moved it inside of the easement right now, they wouldn't have to come to us for anything.
Yeah.
They could build it.
Clarify, Joey, they set their fence at 40 foot and that's what they gave me right away to, is the fence line itself.
Oh, really? On the survey here, the back side of that 15-foot easement is the property line. So it'd be behind the fence. Is that all right?
Yeah, it looks like the easement would go past that fence about, I think, yeah, that would be 7 feet between the fence and where they're proposing. So that would be another, yeah, it looks like the easement is the fence is on the easement.
So did we get clarification on that, or do we still need to do some additional math?
I've got my question answered. If that's what you're asking, Jeff. I'm
Okay.
sorry there. I was just making sure that it was.
All right.
If we told, yeah, it wouldn't still be in the way if we approve the master street plan.
Okay. So I'm going to ask any of the other commissioners if they have any questions that would need to be answered, or express any concerns or thoughts in regards to this. Okay. Anything else from staff, either Donna or Nicole? Again, I think we've shared some thoughts, definitely some concerns as well. So if there's no more questions or thoughts or concerns, then I would entertain a motion in regards to this vacation 2003 on the Roar property. Again, it's lot 117 in phase 2.
This is Eric. Can I be heard at all?
Yes.
Hey, I'm the surveyor on this. I have a couple questions. Number one, the 34 is not from the center line. From the center line, you're looking at almost a 50-foot or at least 45-foot right of way. You'd be ripping down an entire fence for a imaginary super boulevard that's not going to exist. A lot of times these easements are because utilities go in the back. There are no utilities in the back of this property along the entire subdivision. So I think we're talking about something that doesn't exist. I just don't see the future right away being a reason to hold up a pool on something like this. As you can see, it's a very nice fence. There's the same happens on both sides of this road. There's existing fences. I don't see this road ever going to some super highway. I just think it's usually that 15 foot is reserved for private utility companies. There are none back there. This is an established subdivision. None will be going back there. And I think this should be approved as shown. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
I will say that the widening for 102B has been on the docket before and then back off the docket. So it's not I wouldn't call it a non-existent option that they're going to widen that, because it has been in discussion with the state previously.
To 50 foot from center line.
I think it was 45, and then the issue that we're talking about is the easement outside of that to run public utilities down it.
Okay, so I guess then we'd be talking about, again, future to where you'd be knocking down an entire fence, having to buy property from a whole bunch of houses. Just seems like kind of far-fetched compared to what we're asking for.
And if you, that fence was $1 million fence from what I've heard, and I don't think they're going to knock that down, but you never know.
I think that the $1 million fence was kind of a play on the total of the property, but I
know.
I think that's just kind of a rumored thing.
I know. I just thought I'd get a chuckle.
And it is a state highway. It's not the city's highway. It's the state's highway.
Well, and another thing you said about the other people having a pool, they are 3 houses from me, and their fence is this wall. So they're not in the interior of this development. They're on my side of the street, and they put their pool in. So
I'm going to keep us on track here, and I appreciate the input, Eric and Todd, in regards to the streets. And I don't know if that's Valerie, somebody if you'll mute for me because I'm getting a lot of feedback. So with that being said, I would entertain a motion in regards to this vacation for the Aurora property. So again, I'm looking for a motion either to approve or deny the vacation for the Aurora property on lot 117 of Tuscany.
Jeff, this is John. I had a question on that. Is that the only option, approve or deny? I believe the surveyors mentioned earlier that they would entertain adjustment of the design to accommodate a different, or is that something that's totally different that it would
Well,
have to resubmit?
if they're going to do that, then we really don't need to do anything. They would just have to get it approved through the building department to get their permit. But I would rather, I guess to answer your question, I would rather us, answer their question so that they're not spending money as well on design if they don't have to. Understand what they offered, but that doesn't necessarily, fix, the fact that they may not have to do anything. So we really should. And again, this would be our recommendation would go to council because council will still see this after us.
Jeff, you said that council basically denied the last request, which was a little bit different circumstances, obviously, that we felt, but that one was also denied, correct?
At the council, it was, yes.
Okay.
Clarification. It was denied. This is Ron. It was denied because you guys had tabled it, is what I understand.
No, Ron, it's a different parcel, Ron.
Okay, gotcha.
We had two last time.
Jeff, this is Joey. I'll make a motion to deny vacation 2003.
Jeff,
This
it's
is
John.
Tiffany. I'll
I would second. I'm sorry.
Sorry, John, every time.
So I'm going to do a roll call vote on this, but we do have a motion to deny and a second. So Todd, I'll give you just a second to go through. And this is one of those odd ones that if you vote yes, that means you're denying. If you vote no, then that means that you're approving. And so with that, Todd, if you're ready, I would entertain a roll call vote.
Sure. Ben Lewis,
I abstain.
John Sessoms,
Yes.
Jerry Harris,
Yes.
Tiffany Morris,
Yes.
Amber Beal,
Yes.
Craig Langford,
No.
Devin Murphy,
Yes.
Joey Engel,
Yes.
and Jeff Seifarth.
Yes. So the request is denied in regards to the vacation for the lot 117 at Tuscany.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, sir.
If we submit a different design that does not encroach on the easement, should it have an issue being approved?
Well, I don't know that we would necessarily see that. The reason that we saw this one was because of the vacation of the easement.
Okay.
I believe that if it's within all of the requirements, then you just need a building permit through the building department.
Understand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we're going to go ahead and move on to new business. First thing under new business this evening is subdivision 20-05. This is the South Winds Phase 2 preliminary plat and plans. This is at Womack and Kimmel Roads, R3, 113 single family lots, 27.9 acres. And it looks like we either have Mark or Tal or maybe Phil or Joe to give us an overview. Is the developer or the engineer going to give us an overview?
We are working on unmuting them all. They came in force tonight. So I think we've allowed Mark and Tal and Phil to speak. You'll just have to unmute yourselves if you'd like to speak.
This is Phil Swope.
This is Mark Marquis, and I'm going to go ahead and let Phil and Tal speak. I'm here to answer any questions that they can't answer.
Thanks, Mark. Phil, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this is phase 2 of the subdivision we recently final platted on the corners of Walmack and Kimmel. This one does not front Walmack, but does abut the other phase and also the east pond that was built as part of phase 1. There are 3 accesses to the street stubs to the north to that neighborhood. There's one road access down to Kimmel Road. There's a future stub to the east into undeveloped land there, and a future pond. So overall, 115 lots, two non-buildable lots, one a lift station lot and one a detention pond. But this is very similar and same in size and type of the lots and the homes that will be built in phase 1.
Do you want to go through the waivers real quick, and then we'll get the overview from the staff?
Sure. We asked for a waiver for going to the MO type inlets. Those are just the round inlets. We did that on phase 1, and I think Rick's in favor. Also going to HDPE pipe where not under roadways. And then the third one we just worked out with John Wary earlier today. We're asking for a waiver of HGL requirements and hydraulics of the storm sewer for a couple inlets that are there next to Kimmel Road.
Okay. Thank you. Nicole, do you want to go ahead and give us an overview?
Sure. Phil did a great job and stole a few of my points, so I'll try not to be too redundant. Again, it's 113 total single family lots proposed, 2 of which are non-buildable, the detention lot and lift station. This is a continuation of phase 1, obviously. However, they do not actually connect, so they are kind of separated by that detention and retention area on phase 1. And as Phil mentioned, this does connect to the north into the Willow Crossing subdivision, and at 3 different locations. And then they have one entrance onto Kimmel Road on the south side, and then a stub out for future connection to the east. It is zoned R3 single family, so this subdivision conforms. Some of the building setbacks you'll notice on the west side of Poplar. There's a little bit enlarged utility easement to accommodate a force main through there. And then there's some utility easement enlargements on the frontage of some of these residential lots. And then the lift station is a blanket utility easement. There's a power line that's existing through here. So they kind of set this up to accommodate existing and proposed utilities through there. They have agreed to dedicate a sliver of right-of-way on the east side of the detention pond that allows for, if there's ever a connection to Buckhorn Flats, that would allow for an alignment so that the intersection is aligned and not offset. It's just a small portion, which is what we discussed in our conceptual meeting, just in case they were able to accommodate that. And it's kind of just an if and when type scenario. Let's see. We can get into detail with the waiver requests later. They are proposing adjacent improvements to Kimmel Road that would match the phase 1 improvements. There's a 6-foot sidewalk along Kimmel Road. And I believe it's just under 3 feet of widening with the curb and gutter for those improvements. And then a storm system. Excuse me while I wrestle my paper and turn my page. We did receive an adjacent street improvement agreement, and it has received staff support. That is part of your approval with this project, along with the waivers and the plans themselves. There is not floodplain on this property. However, you'll see on this map, the pink area is floodplain. So they have floodplain to the south and to the east of this property. Just as a note, they got wetland determination prior to phase 1, and that determination said there wasn't any jurisdictional wetlands. Other than the detention lot, there's no common space proposed with this phase. They did quite a bit with phase 1 with their large detention area. And then they dedicated a future dog park on the southwest corner of the property of phase 1. And John, maybe you can chime in regarding any outstanding drainage analysis reviews and whether you support the waiver requests.
Yeah, this is John Worry. And we did discuss the waiver request. I think the type MO inlet in the HDB pipe is something that's pretty standard. I support that. The hydraulic grade line waiver, there were several places where Phil was having some difficulties trying to meet the requirement. And he is determined that he can meet the requirement in every place except for 2 inlets. And they're both inlets right there. Yeah, right there where the little hand is. And in order to meet that, they would have to make that entrance into the development real steep to raise the grade, which doesn't make a lot of sense just to pick up a few tenths of hydraulic grade line. So all that said, I would support that waiver.
Hey, John, while you're on the phone, can I ask a question? And Nicole, could you scroll 2 pages down to the 100-year hydrograph? And it's 2 pages below Phil's waiver request letter.
Is that in your packet? Because I may
It
not have the
is.
full packet on the presentation.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I can explain it. I just had a question. The waiver request letter said that the 100-year HGL stayed underground in the 100-year storm. But if I'm looking at the rim elevations on the 2 pipes that they don't label it, it's line 18. It's line 18. It's an 18-inch at 0.18%. Anyways, the rim elevation that's listed shows 1258.61. And when you look at the actual profile, the rim is actually, yeah, right there. One more, please, to the 100-year. The rim's actually over a 1259, and the ground surface would be above that 1258.61. We had the same issues doing the Kimmel Ridge project out on Kimmel. It was a huge nightmare. I think it'd be supported if it stayed underground, but can we just double check that to make sure that those calcs are right? Because that something looks weird between the profile and the listed rim elevations.
Joey, if I'm understanding, your question is, does the hydraulic grade line for the 100-year event actually stay underground as stated in the waiver letter?
Correct.
And yeah, and I'm not sure because I didn't check that because that's not a requirement.
Yeah.
What's required is that the 100-year water surface element be, the 100-year water surface or the 100-year event be contained within a right of way.
Right.
which allows you to go technically 2/10, I guess, above the rim elevation.
I saw Phil was stating that it stayed underground in the waiver request letter.
Yeah.
And just looking at these, it looks like it might not.
I agree, and I honestly didn't check that because I didn't think at the time.
It might not be a big deal because it's just going to hit that ditch and run down Kimmel anyway.
Okay, and which inlets are we talking about?
It's these first two on the right.
Okay, yeah, those, yeah, the V6 and V7 or V7 and V8, I guess.
Yeah, I just
Okay.
wanted to point it out. I didn't know if it actually made a difference or not in your support of that waiver.
Okay, well, yeah, I guess technically it wouldn't make a difference in my support whether it stays underground or not, but it would make a difference whether the 100-year event's contained within the right of way. And if I recall during my review, it was contained within the right of way. And I will point out one more thing, just real quick. In order to meet the hydraulic grade line on some of the other ones, Phil's gonna have to make some adjustments to some of his road profiles, which he's agreed to do. So I just want to make sure that what we're talking about is the waiver for just these two inlets. And the other ones will need to be met, or he'll have to come back again. Okay,
Bill, are you good with just these two inlets?
Yes, we're fine with that.
Okay. And do you see what I'm talking about? It might just be something to check in your HydroFlow software.
Yeah, we will, and it's a little confusing on the colors there, which one is the top ground and which one is the hydraulic grade line, but yeah, we'll be sure that we're meeting requirements.
Gotcha.
You bet.
Yeah, the red one or the lower one, since I know you're colorblind, is the HGL there.
We're happy to meet requirements on those for 100-year.
All right, man.
Thanks, Joey.
Sorry, Jeff. We got in the weeds there for a second.
You're good, especially when it comes to water and drainage. So I appreciate you taking a look. Any of the other commissioners have any questions or thoughts that you'd like to share?
I will just make a quick note in my report. I noted that we were pending that waiver request, and as Joey noted, he's going through it, so it has been received. So that is part of your consideration for approval.
For the two inlets only, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we had previously received the first two, and so this third waiver request was recent.
Okay.
And to clarify, the first two requests are almost standard on every one of our projects now. It's something we need to address and get corrected, as Joey's mentioned a couple of months ago.
Okay. All right. If there's no other comments or questions from any of the commissioners or staff, I would entertain a motion here, considering that we do have, I'm going to do two motions here, ask for two motions. One will be for the approval of the waivers, and then the second one would be for the approval of the preliminary plat.
Jeff, do we need to have a third for the adjacent street improvements? It lists that on the number 4 PC approval.
Yes, so let's do a separate one for that as well.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to approve the presented waivers tonight for the HDPE in lieu of RCP in certain locations, the storm inlet, the type MO inlets, and the HGL waiver for the two inlets. I believe it was B6 and B7.
This is Craig. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, thank you guys for that one. Then I would entertain a motion for the adjacent street improvement agreement.
This is John. I'll motion to approve the subdivision 20-05 South Winds Phase 2 preliminary plot and plans. Oh, is that the, you want to do the adjacent street agreement first? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Are you okay with doing that one? Then we'll come back.
Yeah, I thought you wanted that one next. I'm sorry. Yeah, we can, this is John. I motion to approve the preliminary street improvement agreement, adjacent street improvement agreement.
Devin, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for the adjacent street improvements. Is anyone opposed? All right, thank you for that. And now I'll entertain a motion for the preliminary plat.
It's John again. I motion to approve subdivision 20-05 Southland Phase 2 preliminary plat plan.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Of course, that would also include any outstanding staff comments, which I think that most of them are addressed. So we have a motion and we have a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, thank you, guys. All right, next on the agenda this evening is subdivision 20-07. This is the Valley Oaks duplexes. This is at Gamble Road, which is an R3 19 duplex lots, total of 38 units on just over 7 acres. Is the developer or the engineer on to give us an overview?
Yes.
Do you know which one? Sorry.
Hi, my name is Brandon Woodrow, and I work for Fenwick Properties. We serve as the developer for the owners of the Valley Oaks subdivision. And I'm going to go over a quick overview with you of our development, and then Ron Brixey is serving as the civil engineer for this site, and he's on the call to take any technical questions about our design. And so we've got a 7-acre tract that sits on Gamble Road and extends over towards the west and then up north and ties back into Zachary. It's kind of an L-shaped lot. And it's currently zoned R3 residential with a duplex classification. And our intention is to subdivide this 7-acre tract into 20 lots. 19 of those lots will be buildable. And our intention is to build duplexes on those lots. And one will be designated for a detention pond. Along with this plat, we have a few waivers, just like the last subdivision. And one of them is we're requesting that we be able to utilize Arkansas DOT storm drain inlets complying with the requirements of standard detail FPC-9M. So that's our first waiver request in this development. Our second one is a waiver from the requirements of City Ordinance 9-16, Section 3.3.3. And basically, what we're asking there is to use HDPE pipe in lieu of RCP, which is very similar to the last request. And then we even detail on our waiver what pipes were included, 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, and 12, which are referenced on our civil plans. And then besides those waivers, we too have an adjacent street agreement that we would like to ask approval for. And since our subdivision ties into 2 city streets, there's two separate paragraphs detailing our proposed street agreements. And the first one is on Zachary Street, and we're proposing no driveway entrances to access any of the things that we build on our subdivision off Zachary. It's a local street with a 50-foot right-of-way and 24 foot of pavement width, back of curb to back of curb. The existing pavement width is to be maintained. Sidewalk we're proposing along the south right-of-way line. An existing cross-drain culvert is to be removed and replaced. The existing pavement width is to be maintained with a proposed pay in lieu of agreement for future widening of the south side to 15 foot with curb and gutter. And there's a separate document that we've submitted, an ancillary document that would detail how much we are proposing that width or that widening would cost. And then the second adjacent street improvement proposal is for us on Gamble Road to likewise not have any driveway entrances to the properties that we build on this site. We're also, Gamble Road that we're tying into, it's a 60-foot right-of-way, and there's 22 foot of pavement with no curb. 10 feet of additional right-of-way is to be dedicated. along with our preliminary plat, and sidewalk is proposed along the west right-of-way line. An existing cross-drain culvert is to be removed and replaced. The existing pavement width is to be maintained with the proposed pay in lieu of agreement for future widening of the west side to 18-inch width curb and gutter. And then besides that, no improvements are proposed for Gamble. And again, on our ancillary document detailing the fee in lieu of, we have an estimated cost of what that street widening would cost. And we're requesting to just pay that value in lieu of doing those improvements. And that's all I have.
All right, I appreciate it. It sounded awful technical. And then Donna, do you want to go ahead and give us an overview from the staff?
Well, all right. I don't know that I have all that much after that. There is a draft master on the draft master trail plan. There's going to be a trail on the other side of Gamble. The adjacent street agreement has been approved by staff. There is a history of some drainage issues on the property. So you can see on the south side of this property, there is a large concrete swale that has been proposed. And if we can go to the next page, I've included some more details about this. So on the detention pond is actually, there is a wall, a retaining wall, and we've added, we requested a rail, excuse me if I can speak properly. Brandon, you're making me look bad. And the pond will drain to the swale, and there's actually a underground pipe culvert which will be replaced, and that is part of the adjacent street agreements. And the next page includes some more details about what the swale will look like. So as part of this swale, because it is such a large swale, there have been some energy dissipators that have been added. When this was initially part of a track split with the Christian Life Church. So in the initial review, there were some potential wetlands that were discovered on the wetland mapper. There has been a wetland delineation study done, and there were no potential jurisdictional waters discovered. There are no existing easements on the property. There is access to adjacent city water and sewer. And staff finds this generally conformance with municipal code. We recommend approval of the waivers, and whenever you make a motion, please also make this motion on the waivers and the adjacent street agreement.
All right, thank you, Donna. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or thoughts? All right, if there's no additional questions or thoughts, then I would entertain motion. Looks like similar to the last one, we're going to have 3 motions. We'll have one for the adjacent street improvement. The other one will be in regards to the 2 waivers. And then the third one would be for the preliminary plat.
This is Amber. I'll make a motion to approve the adjacent street improvement.
This is Joey. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right. Now I'd entertain a motion in regards to the waivers.
Joey, I'll make a motion to approve the waivers for the storm sewer material and the type MO drop inlet.
Thanks, Jerry.
John.
Second.
All right, we'll give Jerry the second. Is anyone opposed? All right, and then third would be for the design for the Valley Oaks duplexes.
This is Craig. I'll make a motion to approve subdivision 20-07 preliminary plat and plans with any outstanding comments.
This is Tiffany, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, thank you, guys. All right, next on the agenda is subdivision 20-04, the Prairie Brook preliminary plat and plans. This is at Bush and Tycoon Road. It is R3 single family, 194 lots, just over 40 acres. And it looks like maybe Jason or Paul is here to give us an overview.
Yes, this is Jason Engels. Excuse some of the background noise for I'm on vacation and in Washington State currently at an RV park. So just disregard some of the, hopefully it's not too noisy on your end. This is a 40-acre subdivision located at the northeast corner of Tycoon and Bush Roads. We're looking for an we had it rezoned to R3 back in March, I believe, or February of this year, to allow a smaller density lot that I believe is needed in the city of Centerton for this smaller affordable house. And so we started out with 194 lots, but through several reviews with John Weary, we determined that we needed a little bit more volume for detention. We're now down to 190 single family lots with one detention pond lot. And I'll add that lot 1 will be a temporary lift station. I call it temporary, and maybe Frank can extend on what that means. But eventually there's in the works an interceptor main to be constructed up to the northwest. You're probably 3 to 5 years out for that. So that's why we're calling it a temporary lift station, because we'll construct this, but at some point when the interceptor main comes online, the lift station will be abandoned and connected to that lift station, and then the lot will be returned to the developer at that time. We've been, like I said, we've been through several reviews on this. I think we've been working on this since March. There are some minor comments still remaining, I believe, that we can turn around pretty quickly. But I think we've got an acceptable design to the city. We do have some waiver requests on storm piping and round inlets, and also a concrete trickle channel in the bottom of our pond, which is typically not required. However, we've got a minimal slope in the bottom of our pond because the land is just so flat. To get water to properly drain from our storm inlets or pipes entering the pond to the outlet, the north pipes coming in the pipe, we elected to install a concrete trickle channel to provide enough fall and get water to drain towards the discharge. With that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
All right, thanks, Jason. Diane, do you want to give us a staff overview?
Yes, this is Diane. I'm a planner here with the city of Centerton. And for the people that are new that don't know me, the applicant, as Jason said, currently their subdivision is down to 190 lots. I still had it as 193 single family lots. And the Planning Commission, you guys did recommend approval of a rezone back in February, because this was industrial and agriculture, and now it's of course R3. Wetlands, Jason, you guys will need to check and make sure that there's not any jurisdictional wetlands or anything on the area. It does show that there's a pond, I believe in the southwest corner that exists. I may be wrong on the exact location. So you will definitely want to have that checked out. This is on the corner, of course, of Bush and Tycoon. And they have provided an adjacent street agreement for modified half-street improvements on Tycoon, which is a collector, and Bush Road, which is a collector on the current master street plan. And they are going to provide 35 feet of right-of-way along Bush Road, and Bush Road's also on the master trails plan. So it will include also a 10-foot side path. So you can like an extra wide separated from the road, sidewalk. And then Tycoon Road is a collector. They're also going to dedicate 35 feet of right of way from the property line. So those are the adjacent street agreements. And like the other subdivisions, they have also requested waivers. They're actually different than the other ones. So you have different waivers this time. The first waiver is for the detention bond. Typically, we do require a 4-to-1 slope. They have proposed a 3-to-1 slope due to it being very narrow and to create a little bit more room for detention, and the volume of detention. John and Rick have looked at it, and it is supported by city staff. That is fine. I mean, it's going to be the POA that will be in charge of maintaining the detention pond, and Jason says it seems like POAs are fine with that. And the other item that I think that Jason did mention is the trickle channel there in the pond. Because like you said, this area is pretty darn flat. And because typically we prefer there not to be a trickle channel in the bottom of the pond, but they did turn that in today, and it has since been reviewed by the engineer and Rick, and they are also in support of that trickle channel in there. Jason said there would be, the temporary lift station. It'll be on lot 1, which is just south of Periwinkle Place. If you could scroll down just a smidge, Nicole. Oh, oops. It's lot number 1, which is just south of, I'm pointing at it with my own cursor like y'all can see it, just south of the detention pond. It will be buildable right now. It will be the temporary lift station, but there will be a force main that will run kind of south of that lot, south of there, and then off to the east. And there will be quite a distance that the force main will run to get to a manhole on the south side of Bush Road over to the east. Jason, I do recommend that you guys have a utility easement for that off-site force main, unless by chance there's already one existing. Jason?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. You're probably enjoying your vacation, and then all of a sudden I throw you a question.
I'm actually eating my dinner as I'm listening to you.
Well, I'm kind of
My
jealous.
wife brought my dinner to me. So there's not an easement there now. There's a water line easement. I don't think it would be in the area of the force main, but I believe that there's another development that's under design. It may have not come through the commission yet. There's a possibility that there could be some gravity mains that will actually tie into that will reduce the length of force main that's needed. So we have not quite got that coordinated out.
Okay.
But I believe that that can be accomplished.
Okay. And there is access. There is one entrance there off of Bush, 2 off of Tycoon. And then, as Jason mentioned, there is property that we've had a concept plan for directly to the east of this property. And they're working together to make sure that that street stub out connects with the street that will go through that subdivision there. Public sewer, like I said, it will be the temporary lift station, and the water they are connecting to from there along Tycoon Road. There's no existing easement shown out there. It's not located within a designated floodplain. No common space except for the detention pond. And John did, the city engineer has approved the drainage analysis. There are a couple of outstanding comments that were shown in y'all's packets. They're pretty minor now. John said that anything that they had shouldn't hold up anything. There's one that I need to check with Frank on a 11-foot utility easement along Tycoon. And Frank hasn't made any comments on that either after that question or previously. So we would ask that you guys, if you do accept this, that you do with, contingent on remaining staff comments, and of course also the waiver requests and adjacent street agreements. And I rattled on a whole lot, so if you guys have any questions, by all means, fire away.
All right, thanks, Diane. I'd like to open it up to any of the commissioners if you have any questions or thoughts in regards to the preliminary plat.
Hey, Jason, this is Joey. I'm going to bug you while you're eating again.
Go ahead.
Can you walk me through the process and just the process on lot 1, having a private lift station there, dedicating the easement? Is that lot going to be like a common lot and then get reassigned back to the developer? How's that going to work?
So discussions with Frank, we will build a lift station that can handle, the full development with the force main. And then later, the agreement is the city will remove the lift station and make the connection to once the transmission line is constructed up the drainage up to the northwest, up towards Highway 279, North 279. And at that time, that property will be deeded back to the, or actually it's part of the POA. It's just an easement right now, the way I understand it. The way our language is written on the plat, on the keynote, is that it's an easement. And then later, once that lift station is removed and the connection is made to that transmission line, then the easement goes away and it can become a buildable lot again.
I got you. So it's going to be a public lift station. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And maintained by the city. Yes, sir.
I like the idea. It's kind of funky. I've never seen it before, but I'm sure it can work. It's just going to be a little tricky.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners?
I am not a commissioner, but I would like to note that the pond is not maintaining the 10-foot maintainable buffer. So that should also be a waiver. And then a question for Jason. I was trying to scroll through the plans and figure this out, but it looks like there's just a small utility easement on the east side of the pond to accommodate sewer. What's the plan for franchise utilities in this location?
There shouldn't be any need for a utility easement along a detention pond. There's plenty of room on the east side of the road to put utilities in. So the easement that we provided is solely for that gravity sewer main. As far as the 10-foot maintainable area, I believe that we have that included in our waiver letter. If not, we must have overlooked it. But the 3-1 side slopes with a 10-foot maintainable area was part of our waiver request.
I don't recall that, but Nicole, the waiver letter is included in my presentation. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, didn't.
Nope.
Nope, I didn't get it. I missed it. Sorry, guys.
You'll send us a revised one that will have that.
Okay.
And then did he answer your question, Nicole, about franchise?
I think so. It sounds like Jason, the plan is to put them all on the east side of the street. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And Frank has okayed all this.
we've tried to get, Frank is terribly busy, whereas the city of Centerton is very busy with projects coming through. I don't know that he's had an opportunity to respond, but it's been 2 times that we've resubmitted revised plans. We've got no response, but I'm pretty sure he's okay with it, but I can't say with it 100% that he is. That makes sense. I mean, if anything, Nicole, we can make the easement wider on the east side, make it a 25 since the building setback's 25 anyway on the sides. If that would be acceptable, I think we could do that.
Yeah, let's coordinate with Frank. That shouldn't that should just be considered an outstanding comment from staff. I think there is kind of a bottleneck with the easements, whether that's an issue or not. I don't know. We'll have to get with Frank on that. Thank you.
All right, so it looks like we do have waiver requests. We also have the adjacent street improvement for this one, along with the preliminary plat with just a few outstanding staff comments. So if there's no other questions or comments from any of the commissioners, then I would open up a request or open up a motion for the waiver request in regards to the subdivision 2004, the Prairie Brook preliminary plat and plans.
Jeff, before we get into that, I wanted to double check with Rick that we're not doing the MO inlets here. Do we need to include that?
I would think so. Almost every contractor would rather build the MO now. They're stronger, they're cleaner, and they're more efficient to build. Jason, what is your comment on that?
I thought that we had included that on our detail calls out to state highway department detail.
I thought it was part of it too, but I don't think you added the request.
I will have to revise it, but we do want to do the circular manholes.
Okay, I'm good if you'll just add that request and y'all will approve it.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay. Before we make that motion, we have the 41 side slope, we have the trickle channel, we have the MO drop inlets, and then there was the 10-foot maintainable area around the perimeter. Is that all of them? Have we identified everything?
Yes.
I believe so.
Okay. Jeff, can we start with the waivers?
Yes.
Okay, this is Joey. I'll make a motion to approve the waivers for subdivision 2004. The waivers are a waiver from the 4-to-1 side slope requirement, 3-to-1 is proposed. A waiver to add a trickle channel in the bottom of the pond, a waiver of the 10-foot maintainable buffer area around the top of the pond, and a waiver to construct type MO drop inlets.
This Jerry.
All right, we do have a motion and we have a second. Is there anyone that's opposed? All right, thank you, Joey, for the detail. Next would be the adjacent street improvement.
This is John. I motion to approve the adjacent street improvement.
Joey,
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Is anyone opposed?
That one kind of bled over. Who?
It was me and Craig. You can pick, Todd.
All right.
Joey.
Thank you.
D comes before J, Todd, but you make a decision however you want. And then our third one would be for the preliminary plat and plans.
Mr. Jerry, I make a motion to approve subdivision 20-04 Prairie Brook subdivision preliminary plat with outstanding comments.
This is Amber. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there anyone that's opposed? All right, thank you guys. Thanks, Jason. Go finish enjoying your vacation.
Thank you, sir. You have a good evening.
All right, now we're going to move on to other business, and I'm going to do a little bit of shift here. I believe that Ginger Harper may be on the phone, and just as a follow-up to the drainage complaint, we did move that from old business to other business. So if Ginger is available, I'll go ahead and recognize her first, and then she doesn't have to listen to all of our discussion if she doesn't want to.
Sure, I'm here, if you can hear me.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. So I think the biggest thing from Cody and I's perspective in regards to the city and planning is, in our case, what we're trying to better understand is how drainage that is so vital to the neighborhood can not be developed at the time of final plat or at the time that people are purchasing land for their homes to be built on. Because in our case, it was kind of detrimental in the fact that the drainage was represented one way and then ended up essentially, being 6 to 8 feet back from where it originally was in a natural place. And when the tree line was removed and the drainage ditch was reconstructed, it obviously became a much larger issue. And so like in Cody and I's case, we had already put down a pretty significant payment to our builder at that point. And so we kind of felt like at that point, we were going to lose that money, if we didn't move forward. And essentially we would have. We had given the builder $5,000 to start building on our lot. And we understand that, builders can't get started on work if they, aren't sure whether or not you're going to purchase the property. So we understand that. But what we don't understand is how a drainage swale as large as what currently exists on our property kind of, I guess, somehow, became in existence. And we're dealing with what we're dealing with today, So that's our biggest question.
Okay, thank you. Nicole, do you want to go back to that letter? Do you want to kind of give us a staff overview?
Yes. Oh, I'm unmuted. So my outline is kind of general drainage concerns and how the planning department feels about some of these issues and potential discussion items, both for planning commission and staff to consider moving forward. Just to give a little bit of background with the Maple Estates, since some of you were on the commission at that time and some of you weren't, the Maple Phase 1A was platted in 2016 and actually recorded, I'm trying to find it quickly, in 2017. It was platted with a 25-foot drainage easement in the rear yard of these lots. And I'm kicking myself now. I did not include the plat in my presentation, but I'll try to get it up while I'm speaking. The swale was part of the design and approval and included in the drainage analysis. So since that time, Ashmore to the north has been developed and is now recently, well, not quite accepted, but it's being finalized at the moment. But the drainage system is online, and so it's carrying the vast majority of the storm water through its drainage system and is taking the majority of the water that used to flow through this ditch through the subdivision and through the drainage pond through pipes. So now the issue is that there's this big ditch in the rear yard of these yards. What to do with the ditch at this time. And there is a drainage easement, and there is at the moment some partial portions of the lots on the south side of Ashmore. It's my understanding that about 15 feet of those rear lots will continue to drain into this drainage easement. It's insignificant compared to the amount of water that was coming through here, but it is still some volume. Additionally, it needs to be confirmed whether portions of the Maple lots also will drain to the rear of their lots, and whether they will also be needing some sort of swale through here. But the bottom line is,
can I make
go
a
ahead.
statement really quick?
Sure.
While you have that picture up, I'm sorry. Can you
Nope,
go back?
that's okay. Let me go back. Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So as you're looking here, the that orange barrier that's for the Ashmore construction, if you look down that, what you can see is that where it's the grass is cut, that's where Cody and I's property is. So we wanted the city to be able to really see what the ditch had done as far as erosion. We had sod in the ditch, and that was actually, our fence was actually where that, it was actually past that orange mud fence or whatever you want to call that when we moved in. But because of the velocity and the amount of water that was running through our yard, I was really worried. I literally was worried that my dog was going to drown. But interestingly enough, the people to the east of us, so down this line, they are not aware that their property goes to the orange mud fence. And so they're not, I guess they're not fighting it because they purchased the property with the fence where it currently is in this picture. And so first off, they don't know where their property line is. Second off, my question is to the city. So this should be maintainable.
Can I make
And
comment on that?
yeah.
I got an email from Ashmore earlier because I forwarded your photos that you had sent me to them.
Yeah.
And they brought a surveyor out, and they stated that the survey pins, according to their survey, that is not the property line, that the property line is actually further down in the drainage ditch.
Nicole, I just sent you pictures of all of that just a little bit ago. From the front survey pin to the back survey pin they located today, it's approximately 171 feet, which is the two pins that are on the lot, on the plot, on the final plot. So there is no pin in the bottom of the ditch. The pins that they laid today are on top of the berm. And I sent you pictures of those about 10, 15 minutes ago.
I'll work on trying to get them shareable while you guys continue to chat.
Yeah, so the next point that I want to bring up is once Ashmore does that, once those properties do put up fencing, the problem then becomes who maintains this area that is now in between two fence lines. That it's not going to be accessible by large equipment. And currently right now, it's not, as you can see, not being maintained as it is. We, Cody and myself, were told by the developer that they would be maintaining it until the situation was rectified or resolved. But as you can tell, that has not been the case. So if the swale stays where it's at, and the current situation stays as is, our question is, you're going to have two fence lines that don't have, there's not going to be access on either side to the east or the west. So how is this going to be maintainable, and how was it expected to be maintainable? Does that make sense? I hope I'm being clear.
It does. I have a question. Who's the easement granted to? Is it granted to the POA? If that's the case, it would be the POA to maintain it.
Right now, it's an argument. The developer says it belongs to the city. The city says it belongs to the POA or the property owners. So there's no clear cut answer to that.
So Joey, just to clarify, and Rick can jump in as well. My understanding is that the drainage easement, it was accepted by the city with the final plat. However, our stormwater manual code says that all open drainage channels not owned by the city shall be maintained by the developer or POA.
But it says or in that paragraph, which is if you read that sentence in the drainage manual, the way that I read it, it's the POA or the property owner or and whatever else it lists there. I can't remember. But so it doesn't really clearly clarify that. And if you look, I'd have to look back at our covenants, but I think that there's something that maybe the developer slipped there that speaks to maintaining drainage easements. My question, once again, is these property owners that don't even know that they so-called own property over that drainage easement, how would they even know that they need to maintain that? Does that make sense?
And Rick had tried to relay the city's code, numerous times. It's just not being received by the developer.
It's not, and that's been the argument from the beginning. But you're right. It says it'll be maintained by the developer, the POA, or the property owners, or their successors. And that's the statement. It says we have this issue, and Ginger, you're absolutely right. I have the same issue with a lot of other just utility easements across the town. If you'll look between a lot of subdivisions, the fences all stop short. Then there's a huge grown up area. Those are utility easements that nobody wants to take ownership of. I have the same thing behind my house. I've got about 15 foot that's a utility easement. It's been left vacant, but I take care of it. But every one of my other neighbors don't. It's an issue that happens. The desire is for us, for the POAs to become active, and they address drainage issues that don't get incorporated into the yards like this, or in your case, that you make it a part of your yard. And like we all are thinking and knowing that this drainage swell should go away, but someone should be your developer, whoever took the initial responsibility for it, should come up with a design that says, yes, this can go away. And they've made that promise to you that they would go away with it and would move your fence back and would restore your yard. But in doing so, all of this behind you that they haven't incorporated into these other people's yards or didn't disclose to them that that is their yard will have to be addressed too, or it will hold water.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so
Sorry
these are
about
the images that I,
three different emails, Nicole, sorry.
I think I've got them, so you can let me know if I missed anything. This is a copy of the final plat showing the 25-foot drainage easement and utility easement.
Correct.
The swale takes up pretty much that whole 25 feet. Is that right, Cody?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And then what I measured from what I sent you those pictures is I measured from the front pin that's located on the plat to the back pin, and using 100-foot tape, it's approximately 171 feet. So, that's where they laid it out today. That's on top of the berm, not at the bottom of the ditch, as you can see.
How beautiful those pictures are. Are you a photographer?
Nope, that's just an iPhone.
Yeah, so I know I had asked Rick that on our last meeting about this. So if we did, move our fence to our property line where Ashmore's current berm is at, our fence is actually going to sit actually on where it starts to incline, and there's no sod there as of right now. It's literally all weeds. And so my concern is okay, so once we get all this stuff with our drainage ditch issue addressed, now we've got our fence, and now is Ashmore, because they didn't put sod on the back of that berm and because of where the berm hits our fence, are we going to have issues there as well? So see on the back of the berm in that picture, you can see there's not sod. So when it rains, that's literally just going to erode exactly how the middle of our ditch did.
And you're right to a point. The sodding has to come up to the 100-year flood level inside the pond. Outside of that, they can seed and have to maintain. The 404 permit stays into effect on these subdivisions, and we still do inspections on them until the subdivision is completely built out. And that being said, because he doesn't have growth now, the next month inspection, we may tell him, you've got to reseed this again and again. That's all a part of the process. And the subdivisions continuously get torn up and destroyed as we go. As the utilities come in, as they start building, as they pile material over on the next lot and have to clean it up, we have to address that and tell them to make corrections to this and stabilize this to fulfill that Stormwater Act that says nothing shall enter the waters of our nation. But because he doesn't have growth there, and doesn't mean that we don't address it in the next monthly inspection that we do on that. Sod and seed especially doesn't always take effect. Biggest problem we've got in town right now is the geese are eating up the seed as fast as most of these guys are putting it down. We're getting more and more geese in this town, and they're getting fat, eating the seed that we're putting out. But they will have to address this during the next inspection, and they'll have to address this until the subdivision is built out. The same as your subdivision has to address it, and it has to maintain the storm drain inlet protections and everything else in the areas that are of consequence that anything may enter the storm system. Does that answer your question? I get long-winded sometimes.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, in my mind, one of the things that I'm trying to kind of visualize is, had our fence not been moved, how would this affect the berm? Because as you can see, our property line is actually on top of the berm there.
Yeah, that has got to be something that's got to be identified and addressed. I'm gonna be honest with you, Ginger. I'm not sure. I'm sure that your survey is right. I'm sure their survey is right. We've just got to figure out how to make this tie together, if that makes sense. And
yeah.
What is it that Ashmore was going to bring something up 18 to 24 inches? Is it the bottom of the swale that they're bringing up, or is there something else that they had mentioned they were bringing up?
Ashmore's not bringing up anything. The only thing they like is grading on the lots along this north side, in those south side, excuse me, along the south side. Their intention is to grade virtually all of these lots to the front. They're keeping virtually almost all of their water internally, but the back 15 foot of this will have to taper down and tie into this, which amounts to 0.4 acres over this whole length from the west side of this at the detention pond to the front is 0.4 of an acre. That's basically a normal lot that will be draining into Maple Estates. If you figure an inch of rain, 17,500 gallons, 0.4 of an acre, that's about 7,000 gallons of water that has the potential to hit the ground, and part of that run in the direction of Maple. And you spread that out over almost 1,200 feet, a quarter of a mile. That's not a lot of water. It's going to be going to Maple compared to the hundreds of acres that had been going in that direction before.
Right. And we can speak to that. You know, that ditch is essentially the driest thing on our property right now. The problem is with Ashmore adding any water, our feeling is that gives our developer a reason to say we're not going to fix the issue because that developer is now adding water. That's our kind of take on it.
I remember looking at the existing topo from Ashmore, and it looks like they're taking the majority of water that was coming to you and actually keeping it internally into their site. So they're not adding water, if I read that correctly.
Well, what I mean by that is they will essentially be putting water into that ditch, although they've taken off a ton of water to their detention retention, whatever it is, pond. So what I'm trying to say is because they haven't taken on all the water, so to speak, Maple Estates or C3's C3, it gives them an excuse to not fix the drainage swell that had the water in it. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, and drainage calculations go pre versus post. So I don't think they have a leg to stand on. The pre-water that was coming to you is vastly larger than the post-water after they get done constructing their site. What as a planning commission, what can we do to help y'all? What were y'all looking to get out of this? Because as I see it, this is kind of a civil matter. So I just want to know what we can do tonight to help you guys.
I agree to some extent that it's a civil matter, but from my viewpoint, the question that I have is the amount of water that ran through our property at one time, I'm talking about in 2017, before Ashmore, was so significant that me as a nurse, I was literally afraid for my child's life and my pet's life. And so therefore I had my fence line moved back 30 feet because of it. And at this point, the property is so eroded that there is no longer sod. That sod is downstream because the drainage was not complete when I purchased my property and moved into my home. So the problem is my question going forward for the city of Centerton is, and this would be my recommendation, is why drainage that is this significant is not built and inspected prior to the final fence line, the final house going on the property. And the reason why I say that is because the, so the west side of this ditch literally had nowhere to go to. So that caused a huge backing up, so to speak, in that channel. There was nowhere for the water to go. And so I would estimate that we had at least 4 feet of water in our backyard, running very swiftly. And so when I look at the drainage manual and I read things about, you know, the city being concerned about flooding and the city being concerned about safety, you know, in my mind, I'm not really sure that we, you know, realized how much water was going there, nor did we realize that it wasn't finalized. Those are just my thoughts.
So I'd just like to jump in, and I don't know, Ginger and Cody, if you guys were on the call earlier to listen to some of the discussion. So I would just say that we do take drainage very serious, and we always have. We try to, of course, start with the drainage manuals, kind of our basis when we look at pieces of property and how they're impacted, along with how water is handled within them. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we don't impact anybody that would be downstream if you were to truly look through it. And so, those are definitely the discussions that we have whenever we look at a piece of property, whenever we look at the drainage. And then we rely on, of course, our engineer to, look at and either approve or make suggestions for improvement from the engineers before we would approve the plans. And I don't know if you heard Joey a couple of times ask several very detailed questions, which is the reason that we like to have a very diverse, planning commission, in which, some can ask more detailed questions and some can ask other questions. So, we do challenge whenever it's the appropriate, piece. So from our perspective, we look at it ahead of time. We do the preliminary plat, and then we do the final plat, which also has several checks. After that, we don't necessarily see what happens afterwards. And that's when we rely on others to follow up, if there is any follow-up, in order for that. So we do approve, and we would rely on whether it's the engineer, sometimes it may be Rick, and then of course our staff in regards to what we're going to approve, whether it's drainage, whether it's the streets, and things like that. So we do take it serious, and definitely part of all of our discussions and checklists from a planning perspective. And that's the reason that I think Joey also kind of brought up the comment that if something didn't happen after we approved it, then that doesn't necessarily reflect back on planning. It would go to potentially a civil, which would involve the, potentially the developer.
I guess that's where I guess as a citizen and someone that has lived here for a long time, I think that when a drainage report is submitted, like for example, ours was final platted in 2017 at some point, but it was final platted after the drainage ditch was created and didn't go anywhere. So I guess that's where I guess I'm not understanding, because like things like a detention pond, like we wouldn't allow a developer to continue to build homes without the detention pond being like 100% like done. But yet this huge drainage ditch that runs, to the north of my property was allowed to do that. So that's where I'm having a hard time understanding that.
Yeah, and as you can imagine, we see a lot, and I don't remember all the details behind this one in regards to that final, at the end, but certainly something we can continue. And I know that there's been discussions, along with, I think, a meeting last week with the mayor, as he tries to move, not only the resolution on this, but also the, keeping Ashmore, which is going to help you guys, as was mentioned, obviously keeping Ashmore moving along so that we can really get all this worked out together.
Hey, Jeff, this is John Worry. Can I just make one comment?
Yes, sir.
I think you were referring to this just a minute ago, but the mayor and staff and some representatives from C3 and I believe Cody Harper. I don't think Miss Harper was on the phone, but we were all on the phone for quite a while this past Friday to discuss this. And what was agreed upon by all parties was we were going to meet on site next week with the Ashmore engineer and the Maple Estates folks and the Maple Estates developers in the city, and try to see if there's some resolution everybody can reach. And I think until that meeting takes place, to Joey's point, I'm not really sure what to do.
Yeah, that's what I was referencing. I think it started out as a call last week.
And we were asked to come on and also just express concerns, just so that the planning commission could hear the concerns from citizens.
Yep, and we appreciate it. And again, I hopefully you guys did hear the, the prior 2 or 3, discussions. That's Joey likes the weeds, which is a good thing, in order for us to look through and make those educated decisions.
Right, because I can't look at a drainage study and understand what any of it really means as far as the water calculations or how fast. I mean, I know it's moving fast, but I couldn't tell you how many cubic feet a second that is. I mean, I just don't know that stuff.
Yep, I don't either, Cody. I'm just going to straighten out that that's the reason we have a diverse, group, along with a staff that supports us, and of course, John, or a supported engineer as well, to give us the proper advice, I'll call it, before we approve it.
Right, and we're stuck, as far as the homeowners and the citizens, we're stuck in the middle between the developer of C3 and the developer of Ashmore. And from the meeting that we had on Friday, nobody is really working together. C3 is saying it's Ashmore's responsibility to come up with this calculation to say what the ditch can be. And that's why we're having this further meeting. But before that time, it's very possible that Ashmore is going to be final plat, and we're still not going to have a resolution, or I shouldn't say resolution, but any kind of plan saying that the ditch can go away. The ditch now needs to be 3 inches deep over 10 feet wide. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. That's what makes sense to me, is ultimately what is the structure going to need to be. And I don't know that by looking at a drainage report of numbers.
So it looks to me like Cody's, the drainage swale was developed, was approved with the plat, and it looks like that their fence was always going to be on the other side of where that swale was. I know in my yard where my property pins are, I have a drainage swale that goes back behind me, and my fence just happens to sit on the other side of it. And so when it rains hard, I get some puddling and some pooling, that a small creek that runs down the back of my yard. And it sounds like part of that was like actually in the design and what was approved in the plat. And I'm wondering, Cody, was your fence like one of the first ones built? Because it looks like the whole entire fence line for the whole subdivision going to the east, it's all the same fence line.
So we were the first family living in the neighborhood, and we closed on our house in September of 2017. The ditch was constructed the week of my birthday, which was the week of August the 27th, 2017. But
that's not a good gift.
No, but it was final plat in March of 17.
But I guess I'm asking Rick, is that uncommon, Rick? I mean, I have a swale that runs through my backyard on my property.
Me too, and a nice big sinkhole to go with it.
There's a lot of yards in town that have this same type of swell. There's a lot of yards in this town that have the swell that drain from their neighbor's yard across their yard between the houses and out to the front. A good example of this is Morningside. Morningside has a lot that drain from the back through the neighbor's backyard and between the houses is a swell. My neighborhood has drainage and utility easements in the front and along the side as part of it. And I have undeveloped land behind me, and I get a stream of water that comes through my house. I live in one of the higher spots in town, and it's 6 foot difference between my driveway and the gutter line of the road. But I because I have the fence in my yard, the lowest corner of my yard has 3 foot of water in it at times. Unfortunately, there's a lot of houses in town. One good example I went to this week because I was looking at some drainage issues is Quail Ridge, one of the older subdivisions in town. The same thing that you were talking about for Ashmore, the back of the yards drop off probably 5 foot in that last 25 foot, draining to the neighbor's backyard in a couple of places, or into the creek behind them.
Well, I guess my biggest thing that I could say, and I've told the developer this multiple times, is if this ditch had been there when we walked the neighborhood, we picked out the lot, we would not have picked this lot.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about, Cody, because you remember I looked at your house when it was under construction and it was a small trickle through your backyard. But I said, oh my gosh, you got a stream in your backyard. And
Right.
it,
And so that's,
it went from that little trickle to this river valley that you've got in your backyard. Most of that was done after the subdivision was final platted. They kept making it bigger, taking out the trees and increasing the velocity of the water, and just made it worse on you.
So to speak to that point, and like Cody said earlier, us reading drainage reports, we're obviously this is not our specialty, or nor have we ever read any of this before any of this. But interestingly enough, the cubic feet per second coming out of the detention or the pond here in Maple, the cubic feet per second coming out of the pond into the swell that runs to the west is actually less than the cubic feet per second calculated running through the back of through our backyard. So that's where, just me as a layperson, that's where I'm trying to better understand why it was approved that way.
That's what a detention pond is supposed to do. It's supposed to detain it and reduce that velocity of it coming out, or cubic feet per second coming out.
Well, and to add to Rick's point, on a drainage review, you're kind of handcuffed to the water that was coming at you in the condition. So if you have 100 CFS coming at you in the precondition, the engineer is only obligated to meet that 100 CFS in the post condition. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be slower, that you're not going to have that same amount of water coming through there. Now, they should have designed it to handle that. That's kind of what we're dealing with here. But I don't know all the details, but it's a multifaceted type of calculation, and it's nuanced. And another thing that we battle with is, even on the Coles spreadsheet here, is that by the time we final plat it, we're approving the subdivision, and what we don't have control over are the builders that come in the lots and change the lot drainage to drain our neighbors into the backyard. And I think that's something that Nicole was going to bring up, that we were going to try to get a handle on. And to be fair, every city deals with this. There's not a perfect way to handle it, and it's something that everybody struggles with.
One question I have also is the fact that ditch is dry now. Is it because we had the two wettest years that I can remember? I think the two record years of rain. Is part of it because the rain has slowed down, or is the biggest part of it is because of Ashmore has picked that up, or is it a combination of the two?
It's because of Ashmore, and even with the couple flooding events that we had this year, it didn't go even before the pond was completed, and they actually had the berm cut out in the back. That'd be the southwest corner of it wouldn't come into our property. It would just go over the back of the berm and the detention pond. So, I mean, Ashmore has corrected the problem 99%. It's just trying to get this last 1% that, like what Ginger was saying, C3 is now saying, well, Ashmore isn't following their original grading plan. So now we're waiting on Ashmore to give us what the ditch needs to be, since the 15 feet of these lots is, draining into the swale, but originally they were draining all to the road. And so it's just the finger pointing of it's their responsibility. It's their responsibility is where we're stuck in the middle. And as far as my understanding, as far as us being asked to come and speak to planning, is somehow just to so you guys can hear this and try and not have this happen again to anybody. And not just, I'm not saying, I know there's nothing that you all can do tonight. I understand that. I'm not upset about that. It's just like John, he replied to us, and what is back there is not what is on that final plat. So what is the recourse?
To the developer.
Right. And at this point, it seems like the developer can change that and then there's no consequences for that.
So there was I'm not sure if anybody has the video that that Cody and myself had sent to the city I believe I sent it with my initial drainage complaint, where it shows the amount of water that is coming from the east to where our fence was. And what was happening was construction debris and sod that had been laid in the drainage swale was coming and hitting our fence. So our fence, the water went above where our fence was at, and drainage debris kept getting caught on the fence. And so this is actually downstream. This is to the west. There's one that shows to the east, but that one shows where the drainage wasn't complete. So it had nowhere to go.
Ginger, I think on the last meeting, we had the discussions. This video was a couple years old. Is that correct? This wasn't recent?
Yeah.
So correct. But
Okay.
our point is, so this was taken in August of 2017. This is after final plat. This is after, let's see, was this August of 2017 or October?
That was later, that was fall.
No, February. It was February of 2018. Sorry, February of 2018. So it was after we moved in, and that's where I started looking at the drainage manual, trying to better understand how all of this debris and the amount of water, meaning the volume of water, how deep it got and how fast it was running. It was so deep that we literally had fish in it. And all of this construction debris from the east. So.
And I apologize for wasting y'all's time. I'm not trying to, I know we're seeming like we're griping and complaining, and we're not. The last thing we want is for the subdivisions not to be built out, because that's just going to hurt us in the long run. That's not what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to help move Centerton forward in a positive direction is all we're trying to do.
Yeah, and we do want to hear it, but also understand that, what we control and what we don't control are really two different things in a way. So what I have started making note of, and again, Joey jumped in there because he looks at all that, some of the more details, but we do, take this into account, and it's going to be part of our discussion after this as well. That's on the agenda to talk about, drainage and everything else. So, and then I'm actually copied on all the emails and the communication with the mayor. I think John was on there and of course the staff. So I am keeping aware of it, Cody as well, and Ginger. So if there's anything that I can do, or ask questions, then, I want to make sure that that I am on those. And then if anything I need to share with the planning commission, then that would be part of my responsibility as the chair of the planning commission would be to share it with this group as well for consideration. Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Jeff, I'm just going to jump in here too and say that, as an attorney, this is why our society is so litigious, because it ends up that people don't take responsibility for things. And I don't know who is at fault here for that, but I would say that that's why, we're saying that it's a civil matter, because a lot of the times these things happen. And, I totally understand your position, because like I said, I have a sinkhole in my backyard for similar reasons. Unfortunately, there's not a developer for me to go after at this point. So we totally understand your problem. We hear you, and we obviously want what's best for the city as well.
All right, thank you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to our additional
Jeff,
other business. Go ahead.
Real quick, I'm sorry. There is somebody with their hand raised, and Amy, if you want to hear them.
Okay, sure. You said Amy?
Yes.
Yeah,
Amy, are you there?
I am. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, if you could just give us your name and address, just so that Todd has it for the record,
Sure.
please.
Sure. My name is Amy Savaitinaya. Address is 950 Silver Maple Street.
You know,
So
you got to
I
spell that
am
for
SAVAIINAEA.
Thank
so no problem. Just one last comment on what Ginger and Cody have been talking about. So I've got probably about 10 feet behind my fence line that is part of the drainage swale. I think at the end of the day, after hearing 2 weeks ago, the comments and the conversation around Ashmore and what the conversation that Ginger and Cody led, and after hearing tonight's conversation with Cody and Ginger and their concerns, I guess when I moved in, I did get a survey done of my property. I did know that there was the drainage easement. In asking Kirby with the developer, he told me that as soon as Ashmore was done and the drainage was into their retention pond, the swale would go away. So I guess to me, that's the crux, which is why would we allow Ashmore to put drainage in if the swale can just go away if they grade to their original plat, and if our studies show that we don't need it anymore. So I think that's where my head's at, because in all honesty, I'm looking to put a pool in the backyard. I would love to move my fence and claim my property. I just don't understand why it has to be the size that it is if it's not having the water run through it as it did 2 years ago when Ginger and Cody first moved in. And I can say ever since we had some flooding in our back corner up until the sewage was put in Ashmore. And I can tell you we don't have that problem right now. It actually stays fairly dry behind our house. So I don't want to continue to have this drainage swale if it's not needed. So I guess that's where the planning commission could or would come in at that point.
I'm wondering if Ashmore never was developed, that swale would be there forever, correct?
Correct.
It was
And
designed.
it would be needed. To my understanding, it would have been needed. But in all honesty, I don't know that it's needed anymore. And if it's not needed, who's going to make the decision that it's not needed?
And Todd, you are correct. And we've gone through 3 different, or I shouldn't say 3, we've gone through the swale, we've gone through C3, putting in a change order to put pipe in our yards, removing that change order because of the sale of Ashmore property. There's a lot of things that have happened behind the scenes that we haven't even talked about to not waste your all's time.
I was just kind of curious from her comment about C3 saying that when Ashmore takes all that on, then we can fix all this. But if
Correct.
Ashmore didn't exist, there would have always been that problem there. So it would seem like that problem still lies with C3 and that issue there.
Correct. And we would have had, I think it was either 2 or 3 like 36-inch pipes in our backyard.
Yeah.
Is what they were stating at the one time. And then as soon as Ashmore went under contract, they pulled that change order request, and they formalized an agreement with us. And so there's a whole lot of stuff in the background.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll go on saying, sorry, I don't have an agreement with C3 for them to move my fence or fix. I want to be able to do that myself. Again, knowing that there's potential for this easement to be removed or reduced.
Correct. We've been told even as far as, and I guess Ashmore, by my understanding, the developer has changed hands at least once. But the original developer, C3 and Ashmore, had this agreement between the stormwater, taking on the stormwater to giving them access to the lift station. And so we've been told for 2 years now plus that once Ashmore final plats, the development, everything is there, that the ditch would be able to go away. And so that's why I hate to say the word, we're fighting so hard now to try and get this done. because we wish that we didn't have to contact the city at all. And this was just, working itself out in a natural progression. But unfortunately, we felt like we had to get the city involved so you all knew what was going on in general. And hopefully, and to see if there's any help that was out there as well, because we're butting our heads against a brick wall.
This is Lorraine Burns, and I just have a few comments to say. This swell in their backyard is much bigger than I knew about. I was kind of in and out at that time. With that type of swell, you have to look at if it can be fenced and what type of fencing, if they are doing an open swell. Also, the 100-year, the building setback should have been moved from the edge of that drainage easement. And then what I typically do is would look at that swell being owned by the POA. So it would be platted. It would not be part of a private lot. When we review plans, and I'll just say apparently planning failed here, because we need to make something that is safe, and having something that is this deep, it really should have either been piped or the building setback moved away, and it'd be clear that it was an open drainage swell. And when they did come in and they were going to fix it with the pipe, there was a change order. Ashmore came in and we asked them about if they would look at what they could do to help with this problem with this, because it was a lot more water than anyone realized that it was going to be. And so they did, and they took as much as they could. There is going to be some, and that's what we're down to now. At the end of this, we had said that we would need a drainage analysis in order to determine what was going to be needed for this. But one thing that I do want to say is that this really has, this is like a great example. And so when we review the drainage manual, that we look at this and make changes to the drainage manual to protect the property owners. They are discouraged in the drainage manual, and they're acceptable in some conditions, whether depending on how they're platted, where they are, just like you looked at the oaks, Valley Oaks, that was platted with their common ownership, so the POA did maintain it. And that's how, planning prefers to handle those. How this one got missed, I'm not sure, but I'm hoping that it will be taken care of when we get a drainage analysis and we can see what is actually needed on there. But if it is still too big of a ditch in order that it can't be fenced, and have the flow, we gotta have a train now, then it needs to be looked at piping it.
Appreciate your comments, Lorraine.
Get out of the way of that train.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so I don't know if, Nicole outlined some things, and that's why I think that this discussion on the drainage manual and these changes, I think that it's really important that we work on these and get these done. And that's all I think I have to say.
All right. Thanks, Lorraine. Again, I'm gonna move us forward, and Cody, I will also follow up, because I know that based on the discussion last week, there's the potential of a meeting here in the future. So I'll also follow up with with the mayor and John.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. That meeting is scheduled roughly in middle of next week. So it's in the works.
All right. Perfect. All right. Thank you guys for all the information. All right. I'm gonna move us on to other business. And the next thing under other business is the Planning Commission bylaws. And this is something we had discussion on last time. Changing the terms of the officers to 2 years and any other changes per Planning Commission discussion. And then this would be for approval for the council acceptance. And so as noted here, we would change. So right now, every December, if we remember, up into January, then we would, we vote and we elect our officers for the year. And then this would just change it to 2 years. And so I don't know if any of the commissioners had anything else that they wanted to adjust or have any questions or thoughts in regards to this. If there's no questions or discussion, then I would entertain a motion to forward this to council for approval.
This is Tiffany. I'll make a motion that we send to council for approval the change of the term of office from 1 year to 2 years.
This is Jerry.
All right, we do have a motion and we have a couple of seconds. So we have a motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, thank you guys. And this will be effective, of course, whenever we make our decisions in October for the next year. The next on the agenda is bondable item discussions.
Yes, so at a recent meeting, I don't recall which one, I believe the Planning Commission asked us to look at putting together a list of bondable items. We had drafted this list when we were working on our subdivision development regulations. So we kind of had this ready to show you. I think most of it came from Bentonville's code. Joey, you might know.
It did. I'm looking at Bentonville's right now. I was going to bring it up.
Okay.
To mention on that, Bentonville has their own electric department. Do not. And so we want to strike the whole entire number 2 out of there.
So just get rid of electric. Okay.
Yeah. Because in Bentonville, that's something we inspect with the final action because it's part of the city infrastructure. Since we're Carroll out, it's going to be something completely different. And they typically don't come in into the fact, I believe.
That makes sense. Okay, and we did run this briefly by Rick with Public Works, Frank with Centerton Utilities, and John, and they, were generally okay with it. There was one I thought I had noted or made a note of to possibly remove. Oh, it was the lift station alarm deposit. I don't know that we have anything that requires that, so that might be a Bentonville specific thing as well. But essentially what this list would do would provide more specific guidelines, especially when it gets to you guys for final approval. If this and this aren't done, well, they have to be done or else they won't come to you.
Yes.
If they are on the bondable list, if they're on the bondable list, we can consider bonding for them. We don't have to bond for them, but we can consider it. Does that make sense?
Pretty much on this list, the only bondable items are cosmetic.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that differs from that is streets. So if they need to come in and redo a section of street or add pavement to get the required thickness, I think that's something they can do here too, and curbs and sidewalks. But the majority of it, I think, would help staff identify what we should see and allow them to say, no, you don't have all the bondable items done. You can't go to planning commission. And it also gives the developers and everybody a list of what they have to get done. It's kind of cut and dry on by both sides.
Mm-hmm. The one thing we did add, I think we added, are the final record drawings to allow us to bond for those completions. That completion with the stipulation that I mean, essentially, we need to have received a submittal and they need to have been looked over by staff and seen to be in decent condition and substantially approvable form before we'll consider bonding. And that's basically what we do today. We make sure that staff is generally comfortable with what they've provided before we'd bring it to you guys and possibly bond for it.
Can I ask, why would we want to bond for as-bills?
Inevitably, this is always something that is lagging, and they want to be able to move forward without the approved documents. I mean, in an ideal world, they'd be approved and accepted before they got to you for approval. But inevitably, it takes a little bit longer in terms of review and resubmittal.
Okay, well, that's a good point. So it doesn't put you guys in a bind either if you get as-built, late and you have to review them. Something that might go along with this is a submittal schedule for the as-built.
They're supposed to submit the as-built with the final plat. So we're reviewing both the final plat and the record documents at the same time.
But what about resubmittals?
They do roughly follow the same submittal calendar as the plat too.
Okay.
The plat's a simpler review.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Just thinking out loud.
Mhm.
What if you required? Well, and this might go against the bondable item, but I was going to say, what if you required as-built at your re-inspections? And then, you'd have a complete package to review. And then if it's lagging on the last one, when all the site work's done and they still have items to do on the as-built, that's when you could bond them. Kind of a situation, inspection days are becoming my least favorite days. You get out, nobody has as-built. And then after the final inspections, you get about 80 emails with different as-built, saying, oh, we changed this. Oh, wait, we missed this. We missed that. I was just thinking of a way to kind of curtail that and help you guys have a set schedule where you're getting them throughout the rest of the week and trying to backtrack and log all that.
Joey, I think it's so funny that you're on the other side of the fence now.
I knew you'd like that one.
Our normal submittal schedule is basically the first submittal we have for 2 weeks. And then after that, they resubmit and we review every week. So we're either giving them comments or they're giving us plans. And the record documents are supposed to follow that as well. For some reason, inevitably, they just lag. Whether it's, a lot of iterations or, I don't know, or like you said, after the inspections, they're updating drainage numbers or notes, or I don't know. But,
okay. Hey, no problem. If you guys are good with just thinking out loud. Have we ever had a situation where nobody finished the house and we cashed the bond?
Yes, Morningside, the first phase.
Really? Okay. Okay. And it's a standard $5,000, right?
That's my understanding. I think we've always done 5, right, Lauren?
Actually, the first one that I ever did was the Centerton Manor, and the engineer offered 25,000. And John, I don't know if we took that much, but I was like, he did deliver them as he said.
Well, yeah, if he was offering that, he was clearly planning on getting them done.
Yeah. Yes. But 5,000 is typical. There are some that are, if it's a development and it's almost done, then then I talk with the mayor and reduce it. you know, like 1,000. I think we just did
Okay.
one that was 1,000.
Do we want to, Nicole, where are these? Are we going to include these in code or what?
Well, that is still being discussed. We could just do a Band-Aid amendment depending on, I guess, the urgency that you guys feel. But we can, I mean, we can discuss making this a policy and just having people, you know, this is something that you guys want to follow. And kind of, it's a little bit wiggly that way, but I think it's doable.
I wonder if we give it out in the pre-con and say this is what you have to do for as-built, if that legally would put us in a bind if somebody came in and challenged it. One, where I was going with that is we might want to put the $5,000 amount in the record drawing, like number 6 item right there.
Yeah, I was going to suggest, you know, as we think about the packet that we share that has, you know, the timelines and the everything for them to meet, it could just become a part of that in my mind, couldn't it?
Maybe Brian can.
I think that.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, ask it again.
Well, Lorraine, go ahead and.
With regards to the as-builts.
Well, this document. So what we'll accept and what we won't accept. So up front, we give them, if I remember right, we already give them a packet that has like, here's everything that you need to meet. Here's the deadlines. Here's what we expect and things like that. Could this just become part of that document? And then Lorraine started to jump in there, but then you did as well. So that was just my thoughts.
Well, go ahead, Lorraine, because I'm not terribly familiar with everything that's in the packet, I guess, to begin with.
I believe that we should have something in the code that states the amount, whether it's 5,000 or as determined. I mean, you know, like the last one. I mean, I did reduce it down. It was just for a small development.
Lorraine,
It was
question
excessive,
is,
but
the question we have is,
it needs
does
to
this
be in the
document
code.
need to be incorporated in the code? I would think it does, so we have something to
Yes,
fall back on.
it does.
Yeah.
It does.
And
It
I
needs to
could
be in the code and stated.
I completely agree with that, but we probably need to. I may shy away from as determined type language. I don't know if there's a way to kind of come up with a proposed, you know, fees.
Well, the other thing we typically would do is that we would bring it to the commission and, you know, have them determine the amount.
Well, that's what we're
just
trying
on
to
the
get away
last
from.
one, they get. I know.
Let's get away from that and just put it as straight $5,000 and be done. That's my advice.
That's fine.
Jeff,
Okay.
what do you think?
No, I'm good. I'm good with that.
Ryan had to get in there and give us some lawyer advice.
Lorraine, and is there any problem with amending the code just for this little piece as a Band-Aid, or do you kind of see any issues moving forward with this without the rest of the code?
I think we're going to have to do a lot of Band-Aids right now because it's going to be a long time before we're going to get things done. So I think it's just going to be a patchwork Band-Aids for a little while. So I don't see a problem with of adding it to the development code at all.
All right. Anything else on this one?
Cole, when you get it done, would you send it to me? I'd just like to look at it just to triple check it before we go to adopt it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that'd
Thank
be
you.
great. And then I think the next, to amend code, we have to hold a public hearing. So we'll get it on an agenda and do all the notification requirements. And you all will recommend it to council and they'll do the actual amendment, just to give you a sense. So it will take a little bit of time, even a Band-Aid.
Sure. Are there any other easy ones we know we can add?
Probably we'll take a look. Do you have any off the top of your head, Lorraine?
Well, just like the landscaping, we have a lot of that code done. And I know we just need to, I think if we can just, maybe Nicole and I can just work on getting that development code, at least what we have, and getting it implemented. I I think that will help a lot. But we do have kind of sections that I think that we need to go ahead and see about adopting
I'm just
something on
be
anyway.
easier and cheaper on if we only have to publish it one time, have a public hearing instead of doing it, 10 times.
Maybe we could fix the 2 items that we have a waiver on every single item.
Funny you mentioned
Yeah.
that. Good segue. I think that's next.
Way to go, Todd. All right. Anything else on this?
Moving you along, Jeff.
Thank you. So the drainage manual proposed changes got postponed to the 15th, according to the agenda that I have.
But that could all be done together, I think, as an amendment to the code. It's a different code, so I don't know what that does to our notification, but
well, we can have 2 public hearings. I mean, on
Yeah.
those changes, though, right? I mean,
We can put out one notification of the changes that will be, it's all part of the development code. The drainage is actually, it's pulled out in a different title, but it is a subsection of the development code. But just when we publish the notice, we need to just state what is being, changed, or what is that we're looking at amending.
okay.
And then just lastly, real quick, I'm not sure that it's on the agenda, but we are considering kind of moving back to a formal tech review. We've we've done staff tech reviews in the recent past, but some of you will remember probably a couple years ago, we were doing formal tech reviews with the applicant and PC and staff. Right now, we are meeting after the first submittal, and it's pretty early in the process to be discussing a lot of in-depth technical stuff. So we're looking to move it after we receive the second submittal, and we'd be inviting the applicants, developers, engineers, surveyors, whoever's involved, and possibly franchise utilities, staff, and PC would, of course, be involved if you'd all like. So this is kind of a draft calendar we're working on. It's still very draft. It hasn't been finalized yet, but just to give you a sense, this is that meeting, and it's kind of right in the middle of the review process for the 2 meetings. So just as an FYI, are y'all in support of that or have any strong feelings?
I think they're all excited about it, Nicole.
Great.
I think it's hard to make a 1 to 4 meeting every month. That's just my opinion, but I understand it. So maybe it's if you can come, you can come. If not, I don't know. I imagine a lot of other people are going to have the same concern.
I agree.
That's a good point.
Well, the reason that we decided to do this is that, for one thing, the utilities really would like to be involved in a tech review and have some interaction on this, and also the project engineers, would like to meet and, go through the project and hear all the comments. And so that was the main purpose. We know that's one reason that we had canceled them before, is because the Planning Commission wasn't available. But we felt as staff that this, and from what we have received as feedback from the utilities and the project engineers, that this is something that we'd like to try again.
And I guess what I would, think about would be, maybe if we can't make it from 1 to 4, that there's some designated time that, we could possibly be there for 30 minutes or, something like that to maybe answer some questions that may come up. That would be my suggestion if you want, our full involvement, versus a 1 to 4 on a Thursday. Something to consider.
And I think it's really easy to do that right now because, everything's remote, right? But once the world goes back to hopefully the way it was before, it'll get a little bit more difficult, to jump in and out for those times too. Just something to think about. Or is it something continue to be remote regardless of the situation? Just throwing it out there.
That's the 2022 calendar that they'll be working on.
Some of us had to go to work this whole time, Tiffany. I'm just saying.
I mean, technically I go into the office. That's my problem. Like I go into the office almost every day. So, like going back and forth is not conducive. But still take 2 hours.
So I would just jump in and say that I did attend a couple of them whenever we were doing them. And it was actually, beneficial for me. And, but I could see the 3 hours is definitely a large time commitment. So definitely something we support, Lorraine, Nicole, but, maybe we can have a discussion on what an agenda looks like or something like that may be able to help us out.
Okay, and this was staff getting together, an engineer, and what we had discussed what we felt would be, best on this. But, and we did know, if we need to look at something where the Planning Commission conducts the tech review, then yeah, maybe we need to just have like one of the meetings as a tech review and the next meeting as the approval.
I think
But we were just looking at this as our review part.
Yeah, no, I think
because
I think
we
the way
do
you
the
have it set
reviews
up
right now.
The way you have it set up now, I think is more for your staff internal use with the utilities and the engineer. And I think it was just I was confused because on the old tech reviews, you wanted us to come and it was more like a planning commission to go over the deal. But from what you just said, it seems like this is more of an internal staff thing. And I would hope that maybe if we identify items that need handled or weighed in on by the planning commission, that we can handle that through, I don't know, an email, a quick, 30, 45-minute meeting or something like that. Is that kind of the intent?
If definitely if there were any planning commissioners that were available to attend, definitely want their input. If they review the plans and they have comments, but they're not able to, send those to us and we can address those, with the applicant and so forth. But it was basically for staff because right now we do the review and everything's kind of done, via email. And there's just times where, with the utilities, they get one set of plans. They pretty much get the preliminary, then they'll get the issued for construction, and then they get the final. So it does give them an opportunity to listen, during the tech review, and they can see what else is going on. Just like, we were discussing utility easements. Are they needed? Are they not? That would allow them to have some input into that. So that was the main purpose of opening it up to the utilities.
I'm extremely interested to see how much feedback or attendance you get from the franchise utilities.
Yeah, and like you said, the virtual has been actually better participation all the way around, I think, with most groups.
Okay, well, let's, Lorraine, let's you and I circle back around next week on this and have some further discussion, okay?
Okay.
All right, I'm going to move us on to announcements. Our next meeting is 9/1, and it will be virtual as well. I would plan on September and probably October being virtual at this point, but at least through September will be virtual. Just as a reminder, the comprehensive public planning, the public hearing with city councils on the 27th. The boards are up at City Hall, just in case. And then Nicole, are you going to talk about the APA virtual cross chapter?
I certainly can. So the state chapter offers a spring and fall conference typically, and in place of this year's fall conference that we're coordinating with a few other state chapters to do a joint virtual conference. So this is training, you're listening to speakers and getting information about projects and things across all these states. So that is October 5th through the 9th. If anybody's interested in this, I guess let us know and we can try to help coordinate.
Do you have any details that you could send to us, or is there some place we can look?
Yes. Well, I can definitely send an email with the information. Let me see if I can find the website real quick just to mention. I'll send an email. I don't think it's going to be fast. It didn't come up right away.
If you just send an email with us, Joey's yawning. We must be getting past it. So,
yeah.
You could just send that to us in an email. I appreciate it.
All right.
Anything else from staff?
All I've got.
We have the hand raised.
All right. Who has the hand raised?
Jeff, it's Robin Reed that has her hand raised, and I have asked her to unmute. So let's see if we can get her on.
Robin, are you there?
Yes, I am.
You have.
I was just wondering if Nicole could send me that information too. About the.
Yeah, we'll try to get it distributed widely.
Okay.
For sure. Thanks,
you.
Robin. Mhm.
All right, thanks.
All right. Anything else from any of the commissioners? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
This is Tiffany. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Devin, second.
Motion is second. Is anyone opposed? All right. Thank you guys. Have a good rest of the week.
Thanks, y'all.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.